Hello Internet, Rob from A Minor Error here. I recently got a request to talk about the differences in the hardware between Headless guitar manufacturers Strandberg and Kiesel and kind of my opinions about the two different systems. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So I've made sort of extensive videos discussing Strandberg guitars, and I also did a review video a couple years back on my Kiesel Vader VM7. I think both manufacturers are absolutely fantastic, and they both offer different things that suit different players. So we'll discuss the hardware and discuss what I like and don't like about each brand and how they go about their headless designs. So I think I'll start with Kiesel first, and the very first thing I'm going to point out is that currently Kiesel does not offer any multi-scale instruments with a tremolo. And I think that is clearly one of the areas that, in my mind, Strandberg is stealing at least some degree of business from them. Now, the technical process of creating a bridge that works with a multi-scale guitar is a little bit trickier, and I think that's one of the things that especially Ola Strandberg himself really helped kind of spearhead for his company, figuring out how to get a tremolo to play well with a multi-scale guitar. So if you're buying a Kiesel and you're getting a multi-scale, no tremolo doesn't exist. Now, Kiesel uses hipshot hardware for all of their headless guitars, and if you're going just regular old straight frets, no multi-scale, you can get a tremolo, but not on those multi-scale ones. For me personally, being a lead player, I prefer multi-scale when I'm going to be doing especially drop tunings. You know, that way you can get that tension on the low strings, but still have the top strings being light and kind of slinky and easy to bend on. I find the hardware that Kiesel uses to be fantastic. Hipshot stuff is very, very well made. It's gonna last for years. It's got absolutely great tone. The locking nut design at the top of my Vader is very well made as well. I've never had any problems with it. It's super simple and easy to use. It reminds me a bit more of like a traditional locking nut, like what I'm used to. I've played Ibanez's for like 20 years or whatnot. So I like that it's a nice sort of simple design. One screw just clamps the string down, no big deal. I can do a complete string change on my Vader in like less than 10 minutes. It's really quick and easy, and really love that hipshot hardware. Hopefully hipshot will eventually come up with a multi-scale tremolo unit, and then maybe Kiesel can join the fray there so that you can get a multi-scale with a trem. On the Strandberg end of the hardware, it's Strandberg's own hardware that the company has developed themselves, and the overall fit and finish of the hardware is fantastic. Both the fixed bridge and tremolo versions of the Strandbergs are really well made. I absolutely love my tremolo OS Bowden Original behind me. Yes, the tremolo will flutter, and it does stay in tune pretty well. Now, since it's not a true double locking system, if you abuse it really hard, it's not like a Floyd where it's double clamped and nothing is going to go wrong. It is going to drift a little bit, which, you know, is fine. It's whatever. In normal use, though, the tremolo stays nice and locked in. So now that we're about halfway through this video, if you're digging it, please hit like and subscribe, helps my YouTube channel continue to grow. Here, A Minor Error is the creative home for everything I do musically, which is original, progressive metal, instrumental music. It's also product reviews and talking head tip videos like this one, as well as free music lessons. Also, if you've got a spare 6 minutes, I recently put out a new single called World Minus One, where I use both my Vader and my Strandberg original. The Vader covers all of the rhythm tones. I absolutely love it for that purpose, and the Strandy covers all of the leads, which I like it for that purpose, which is why I have my two guitars. I also really like blending the two different brands. I think that helps, you know, create a little bit more vastness to the sound. If you're doing everything with just one guitar, I think it can get a little stale, even if you're using different amp sims. So I'll do the little link and yada yada. All right, back to whatever I'm blabbing about. Where I think the Kiesel hardware does win here is in the locking nut design at the top, and also that Strandberg has a 0 fret design on all of their guitars. And the Kiesel doesn't. The Kiesel just has a traditional nut. On the Strandberg locking nut, I have ran into a couple different problems. So first, with the OS tremolo unit, when I first started gigging that guitar a lot, I was in a cover band that traveled and gigged quite a lot. We were usually playing 2 gigs every weekend, and I discovered that if I pushed the strings, if I got lazy and didn't do a string change, that all of a sudden one of the locking nuts, the string would just start to slip, and then I would know that the string break was basically coming. It happened to me twice in the middle of a set where we were playing. All of a sudden I realized my first string is going flatter and flatter. I stop playing, try to tune it, and bam, it breaks. That happened on multiple occasions, never happened on a new set of strings, so I'm not entirely sure what was going on there. Obviously, that's problematic. We're being paid to play, and when you break a string like that on a tremolo-equipped guitar, as everyone knows, the guitar is basically driftwood. At that point, you've got to stop, go do a string change, stretch that string back out, retune. Finally, you're going to be ready to play. Another aspect of that Strandberg locking system that I think is a little bit of a drawback is that each saddle is its own individual screw that's holding it down. So for the Kiesel system with the hipshot hardware, it's basically like a cap kind of plunked on the very top of the headstock. It's not terribly pretty, if I'm honest. The Strandberg is a little bit more cosmetically pleasing, I think, but each one of the locking clamps has its own little silver disc inside which can pop out and easily be lost, if I'm honest, and then a screw that holds it in place. Now, what I discovered is after a couple string changes, they pretty much always start to get a little loose, and then you've got to kind of tighten them. And in general, they just don't inspire like a ton of confidence for me. Sometimes I just get a little nervous when I'm changing strings. Also, another thing that I don't like about the Strandberg system is that little silver disc, aside from the fact could potentially lose it, like if you're trying to change strings real quick at a gig, and maybe you've got the strings out and the guitar falls over and the little silver discs go flying, is that sometimes those silver discs kind of jam the thicker strings as you're trying to push them in. So on my Bowden Metal 8, because the nut is so close to those little locking clamps, the thicker strings bump right into the silver locking disc. Even if you haven't cut the top off yet and you've got the very skinny kind of core sticking out, and that makes string changes take a little bit longer and gets a little cumbersome sometimes. Another thing with Strandbergs that some people complain about is that 0 fret wire that can get a little worn, and then you can get the Strandberg kind of click when you bend as the string pops in and out of that little groove. Now the Kiesel, that's obviously not a problem because they don't use a 0 fret. Now the trade-off there is I do really like the tone of a 0 fret. It makes all of the notes sound more uniform. In other words, there's no difference of the material of the string ringing out whether you're fretting it and a fret stops it or you play an open string, whereas on any guitar with a nylon or bone nut, the tone of those open strings will be subtly different. Personally, I like the 0 fret. I think it's cool, but I do understand why that isn't for everybody. Ultimately, the hardware, I would say, is pretty equal in quality between the two different brands, and I think it really comes down to the player. I mean, the best part about Kiesel Guitars is that you can order basically a custom guitar. I mean, they're a full custom shop for the same price you're gonna spend on a Strandberg. That's basically the mass-produced nerdy prog guy guitar that every nerdy prog guy is gonna be playing. You could get a custom guitar exactly with what you want. The exact body wood, tops, pickups. I mean, you can customize the absolute crap out of a Kiesel. You know, a Strandberg original or a Prog is gonna run you around $2,200. You can really spec the crap out of a Kiesel for $2,200. Again, you know, if you want to go multi-scale though, that doesn't mean that a tremolo is going to be an option with a Kiesel, unfortunately. I think the fit and finish of both companies is pretty much exactly the same. The Kiesels come with stainless steel frets, just like the Strandberg does, so they're going to last last forever, and they're gonna have that nice, bright sort of tone. But the Strandberg does have a more ergonomic design than any other Kiesel, both with the Enderneck design and also where they put the strap pins on the body. My Vader is not a very comfortable guitar to play standing up because those pins are in their sort of traditional spots on the top of the horn and the bottom of the body. The Strandberg is definitely superior there. So thank you for watching this video. I think both of these brands offer a fantastic guitar at a pretty reasonable price for what you're getting. Ergonomics and the overall design of the Strandberg is still one of the most unique instruments on the market, but with the Kiesel being a full-on custom shop and you being able to spec it out to whatever you want, it's almost like being able to build your own signature series guitar. You can really make a unique instrument. But either way, you're gonna get good hardware from both companies. So it really just comes down to what you're looking for. If you want a multi-scale with a tremolo, there's really only one option in my opinion, which is to go with the Strandberg. If that isn't a deal breaker for you, yeah, checking out a Kiesel makes a ton of sense. They're really well-made guitars and they have a great tone and a load of great features, and that hipshot hardware is very reliable.